So why do private companies need boards? The interesting thing about most private businesses is they don't think they need a board. In fact, most private businesses in the world will never have a board because we're not brought up as private companies to understand that we need a board. We don't even understand what a board is, a director is, let alone comprehend the value that a board can give us in a private business. Most privately held companies, or the directors of most privately held companies rather, become a director of the business the moment they sign the form to become a director. And that's the extent of their official engagement as a director. I've signed the form, I'm now a director of my own business. I'm essentially the board, or plus my husband, wife, or significant other, whoever it is that I've gone into business with. So what we've got to do as directors is we've first got to understand the psyche of the privately held company owner. The person who has invested their own money in making this business something, in getting it off the ground. Or the family whose money is invested in this. Often, all of whose money is invested in this. And the best way of understanding that or explaining that is understanding that a privately held business or family business doesn't have to have a board. The Companies Act doesn't require them to. They're not listed, so there's no listing requirement. And they're not a public entity responsible to a government department that requires a board to make sure they comply with relevant legislation or regulation or government requirement. So a business that appoints a board in a privately held context or a family business context is one that's chosen to do it and therefore will unchoose to do it very quickly if it's not adding value. So the short answer to why does a private company require a board is because a private company can grow faster, can create more value, will consider its stakeholders in a wider and broader perspective if it has one. So the short answer to why a private company needs a board is that private companies that have a board soon understand the value a board creates. Not because they have to have it to tick a box, but because by having a high performance board, it creates value for them, for their shareholders and for their other stakeholders. Private companies who create a board quickly understand the value of having someone come in and challenge the chief executive, who is also often the shareholder or even the only shareholder in the business. They understand the value of having a board to which they've got to report on a regular basis, who's going to make sure that their decision making and their process is interrogated, that come at them from the side with the "but are you sure?" questions. I've sat in the boardroom of businesses that have made decisions confident that they're going to have the support of the external regulators that they're responsible to. And I've sat with the board and I've gone, "I know this will happen." And the board's gone, "But what if it doesn't?" And then to their absolute surprise, 3 or 4 months later, the decision didn't go their way. But the questions the board have asked have got them ready, have got them thinking, have got them prepared for that thing that they didn't think was going to happen. You see, at the end of the day, if you're a shareholder manager and you think you don't need a board, it's a pretty arrogant perspective to take. It's essentially saying, unlike any listed company, in my business, I don't need anyone else to bounce my ideas off. I don't need anyone else to challenge me in order to create the most value for myself or my family trust or my family, depending on the type of shareholding structure you have. And so why privately held companies need boards is because boards help create value. And if as a director, you're not sitting around that table focused on that outcome, I would challenge you as to whether or not you should be there at all. But ultimately, why do privately held businesses require a board? Because a lot of people think that their business is about making them money, that their business is there to create wealth for them and for their family. But how uninspiring is it for the teams, for the organizations, if the shareholder manager thinks that the existence of the business is to fund their lifestyle? Your role as a director includes not just holding the chief executive accountable, not just creating value for shareholders. Your role as an independent director includes ensuring the organization delivers on its promise. ensuring that that organisation has an impact, has a meaningful economic impact, as we would say at the Sadar Group. So why private companies need a board? Is because not only do they create value for the business, but they ensure the company has a sense of purpose and delivers on that purpose. And your job is to make that happen.